Hopefully, the majority of you viewers watching this have already seen part 1. But for those of you that haven't, here are the first 15 fighters. Today, we'll be taking a look at the final 10 boxers of the list, and at the end of the video, we'll be counting down our personal top 25. Without any further ado, let's get straight to it. We thought Pt2 would be a good place to start, considering the overwhelming amount of comments made on part 1 of people furious not seeing him there. Come on. Did you really think we were going to do a countdown list of hard punchers and leave the Tuaminator out?
What I like about Montana, there it is.
Tua is arguably the hardest punching athlete to ever come out of the Oceanian continent, right next to Mark Hunt, of course.
And that left hook was brutal, right on the jaw, stepping true.
Coming through the ranks as a young man, Tua was knocking every fighter senseless. People doubted him over the level of competition he was facing, but when he met former world champion John Ruiz in 1996, the world stood still as he obliterated him in under 20 seconds.
Listed as having a reach advantage here. We'll see how he uses it. Tua with a big left hook and Ruiz in trouble. Tua comes right at him. Another big bomb and Ruiz is down. This could almost be over now.
A total of 43 knockouts and 52 victories left Tua with an 83% knockout percentage. Not bad for a man of 5'10". Although Tua never became a world champion, he is still often ranked amongst the greatest fighters of his era, like Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis. Frank Bruno is hands down one of the biggest muscle-bound heavyweights of all time, and with his 25-inch biceps, he knocked out 38 of the 40 opponents he beat.
He's got him again, he won't get up from that. He's stretched out over the photographers. He'll never make it. He's out, and Bruno.
Frank was an absolute legend in Britain. He was seen as the darling of the nation, and to be honest, even in his defeats, the British public seemed to adore him even more. Frank fought a large majority of his career in England, and has never really gained recognition worldwide for his talents. Honestly and truthfully, he never really beat a top 10 heavyweight of his time, and every time he stepped up, he got beat. But it was always interesting to see how he would come back.
There is only one Frank Bruno.
It pains me to think where I'm going to slot Deontay Wilder in this list overall. Don't get me wrong, I think he is without a doubt one of the hardest single-punch fighters of all time. I mean, that's clear when watching any of his contests. But considering he's still an active fighter that has yet to beat any serious top contenders outside of Stiverne, it certainly feels unfair to rank him over proven guys from the 90s. Either way, I'm a big fan of the Bronze Bomber, and love what he brings to the table. People often criticize him for his wild style and unorthodox gangly footwork, but he's never claimed to be a technical fighter. His job is to go in the ring and knock someone out, and outside of just one fight, that is exactly what he has done.
When people come out and see, they want to see the knockouts, and baby, every time Deontay Wilder have a show, that's what y'all gonna see. Y'all gonna come and get y'all money, baby. Wait, knockouts, man.
Donovan Razor Ruddock is a very underrated fighter from the 1990s. He was one of the rare boxers that really pushed a great version of Mike Tyson to the bitter end. A fairly modest 30 KOs in his 40 wins doesn't really reflect Razor's power at all. His true prime years were from 1986 to 1992, and within that period he actually knocked out every opponent he beat, using the famous Ruddock Smash along the way. Lennox Lewis really put an end to his career in 1992 after wiping the floor with him in 2 rounds. But it wouldn't be until 2015 when Razor finally hung him up, adding an extra couple of defeats to what was a pretty good-looking resume. By far, the greatest champion of the last 10 years, and many will argue the hardest puncher as well, Vladimir Klitschko, made absolute mincemeat of his competition during his title reign.
Holds up for the moment to that punch.
Yes, Pulev.
Down goes Pulev on another left hook.
Unbeaten fighter after unbeaten fighter, no one was a match. Dr. Steelhammer is often discredited by modern-day boxing fans for having a boring style, but you can't deny the fact he stopped 53 of his 64 opponents, and many of those were with a single punch.
He's had no ability to get close to.
Second knockdown of the round.
Legendary boxing trainer Freddie Roach said Klitschko was the hardest puncher he had ever taken on the mitts, and that's a man that has trained everyone from the UFC's Fedor Emelianenko to Iron Mike Tyson himself. Whether his accounts are accurate or not, I'm inclined to agree that Vladimir certainly ranks amongst the sport's best when it comes to power. If I could choose just one fighter to not get in the ring with in the 1990s, it would have been Ray Mercer. Nicknamed Merciless for the way he brutalized his opponents, Mercer would go to any length to make sure his man was not getting back up. His infamous demolition job on Tommy Morrison is a perfect example of that.
And now Mercer on Morrison in the corner, and Mercer's all over him, and Morrison in trouble! And Morrison goes down for the first time in his career, and that is it.
Mercer never really compiled an outstanding resume, but became a world champion and took great fighters like Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis to the absolute wire. In fact, many people felt he beat Lewis in their fight in 1996.
Whenever my wife see guys with necks like that, took right hands, but this is one guy, Lewis, you can't just do that.
Like so many others, Mercer kept fighting way past his prime, and even challenged Klitschko for the title in 2006. But at this point, he wasn't even a shade of his former self.
His corner, but there comes a point. Another huge run. He's just teeing off on him now.
Yeah, I mean, Randy Newman's got to look at stepping in here.
And he has done in the 6th round, all over.
Riddick Big Daddy Bo was the sort of guy that could beat your favorite fighter without a training camp. Absolute bags of talent, and when things got down and dirty, he proved that he could really dig in and show a true fighting heart.
Oh my God.
His epic trilogy with Evander Holyfield is regarded as some of boxing's greatest wars. Round after round, they punished each other with devastating combinations, and as great as Holyfield was, throughout the 3 fights, Bo proved he was a better man overall and even won 2 of the 3 contests. At 6'5", Bo was the first real boxing giant of today's standards, and he used his impressive skills to KO 33 opponents in his 43 victories.
There it goes. That should do it.
Layman Brewster is one of my personal favorite heavyweights of recent times. You know, every time you tuned in, you were gonna get an excellent scrap.
Brewster's fought every Bigfoot mark. That's a help. And we're underway here. Brewster comes out firing. Patiently, Kevin. A big right hand for Brewster. And Brewster hits ATL with a left hook as well. Layman Brewster coming out on fire. Explosive here.
The hard-punching fast starter blew away his first 23 opponents with ease, and it would take knee ligament damage before he finally lost. The absolute pinnacle of Brewster's career was in 2004 when he rose off the canvas and knocked out Vladimir Klitschko for the WBO heavyweight title. Overall, Brewster just had an amazing style to watch. Fast, powerful, great movement, and a fan-friendly type of guy. You can argue back and forth about who is the hardest puncher on the list, but for me, there is little debate about who has the best resume. Lennox Lewis has actually beaten 11 fighters listed here today. He pretty much tore apart every top contender of the 90s and early 2000s, which for me personally is the most stacked heavyweight division in history when it comes down to pure talent.
I mean, he handled Tyson with so much ease for 4 rounds that it made it look too easy to him. Here, he was never in it, and Lewis just exterminated him with that combination.
Lennox only lost 2 fights in his career, both of which he avenged by stoppage. Not everyone was a fan of Lennox's style, but honestly he was just much smarter than the other contenders. Often enough, he slowed the fights down when he knew he could, waiting for the right time to pounce. I've seen all 44 of Lennox Lewis's fights multiple times. He was kind of a family favorite in my household growing up, and I can honestly say I've never seen someone with a ring IQ as good as his. He dominated and took control of fighters, the true definition of a ring general.
Of this era, nobody should be able, there's no one in the world can take that from Lennox Lewis now. He is no doubt the best heavyweight of all time. What he's done clearly puts him on top of the heap.
What can we say about George Foreman that you don't already know? He won his first 40 fights in a row, most of which were inside 2 rounds. When he eventually got to title level, he absolutely destroyed him, famously lifting the #1 heavyweight in the world Joe Frazier off the canvas with an uppercut, and he completely obliterated him in just 2 rounds. Foreman eventually got outwitted by the great Muhammad Ali, which made him question everything about boxing and ultimately retire. And then, out of nowhere, he pops back up 10 years later looking like a different human being. But he still had that brutal one-punch power.
Because he's got a minute and 8 seconds left. Oh, and that's it!
And I don't think this fight's over. This fight's over. George Foreman blows away Jerry Cooney in the second round.
No one was taking Foreman seriously in his comeback, but he shocked the world as he KO'd Michael Moore in 1994 to become the oldest heavyweight champion of all time, an achievement that I'm not sure will ever be beaten. Certainly not in my lifetime anyway. In his 76 victories, he blew out 68 opponents, which is just an astonishing number when you consider the fact he took a 10-year hiatus. Young George, old George, it doesn't matter. This man just had the God-given power, and that's why the majority of boxing fans regard him as the hardest puncher, not just of the last 25 years, but of all time.
So, he says, who hit you the hardest?
George Foreman.
Big George.
Oh, Big George. George hit me with one shot. When he hit me with that shot, my feet froze, and the bell rung. I came back to the corner. Did he knock all my teeth out?
So here's how we listed our personal top 25. Sorry if it's a bit confusing if you watched the video and thought it was in order. To be honest, we were editing both parts and making our minds up along the way. Until next time, fight fans, this is Boxing Legends TV, signing off.